I came across a podcast featuring heavyweight champion Mike Tyson giving an old worn out idea of compassion. And this is an area of compassion that we need to be careful of because it can potentially keep people in dangerous situations. Here, take a listen for yourself.
Yeah, I'm not really
you listen.
Yeah, I'm not like...
You're not ready, brother.
I'm not like... When you do me wrong...
No.
You cross the line, like, I cut ties, like...
The devil wins.
Quick.
The devil wins.
So you're saying the devil wins because someone did me wrong and I cut ties with that person, act like I never met that person.
Yeah.
So I gotta be the bigger person.
Because he changed you.
Oh, okay.
So he's your master because he controls your emotions. He's not your enemy, he's your master. Because you're not who you used to be now. He stole that away from you. Well, you allowed him to.
Mike Tyson goes on to talk about compassion. Watch how great you'll become when you learn compassion, which, by the way, compassion isn't something you need to learn. Compassion comes natural, but we're going to talk more about this in just a moment. Now, I know it sounds good and endearing what Mike Tyson is saying. It sounds good on the surface. It really does. It sounds like something you would hear in modern Western Christian church. As a matter of fact, many of us have. It's the same type of turn the other cheek type of mentality that causes people to oftentimes stay in toxic situations, getting punched in the face, literally sometimes, just staying there saying, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" And now, in this situation, in this conversation, the young man that Mike Tyson's talking to naturally displays what's in our nature, which is when someone's doing me wrong, I need to cut ties. That's actually normal. That's normal, even in a young man. And Mike Tyson, being the elder in the situation, should be that echoing voice of wisdom, so to speak, saying, yes, if people in life are doing you wrong, you do need to cut ties. You do need to be careful with who you engage with. You ought to be careful with who you associate with. You need to learn how to watch out for what's yours because there are people out there who want to take from you. There are people who want to rob you. There are people who want to abuse you. And it's up to you to learn how to navigate this world. But instead, Mike Tyson is almost on board with the preaching, the wrongful, false narrative preaching of compassion. Now, let's break it down. Let's break it down to what's really being said here. As I said, it sounds good on the surface, what Mike is saying. It sounds admirable, but when we look under the hood, let's look at the false narratives together. Number one, the first false narrative that we see is that if you cut ties with toxic people, the devil wins. If you cut ties with toxic people, the devil wins. That is absolutely false. The devil does not win when you cut free. The devil has won when you get caught in that trap. The devil wins when you engage in these toxic relationships. The devil wins when you are stuck in a situation where somebody is cheating on you, robbing from you, stealing from you, abusing you. That is when the devil has won. How do you know this? Especially if you are at the place where you're too afraid to move, you're too afraid to leave. That's when the devil wins. As we all know, the Bible says, the Lord does not give you a spirit of fear. The Lord gives you a spirit of courage. And there's times when you want to leave, but you're too afraid to. That's when you know the devil has won. The next false narrative is that your enemy becomes your master when you cut ties. Those of you who have been involved in toxic relationships, you understand that these personalities, these people will use and abuse over and over and over again in these dynamics. They will steal from you as long as you allow them to by remaining in the toxic situation. They will continue to squash you down. They will continue to oppress you. People, especially when we talk about the toxic, narcissistic people of this world, there's only one thing with them, and that's enabling. Abuse is always progressive. If somebody steals from you one time, they'll do it again. It's progressive. Why? Because they feel they can get away with it. This is when they're your master, is when they're able to get away with these things over and over and over again. Why? Because you have not cut the ties. So again, They're only your master when you are in the toxic situation. When you get out of a toxic situation, when you leave and go no contact, they're no longer your master. You're sending a message loud and clear saying, you are not my master. I'm a free agent. I have free agency. There's no master over me other than the Lord above. Amen? So the third false narrative is that leaving a toxic relationship, cutting ties, means you've changed and you're no longer the person you used to be. As if that's a bad thing. Listen, change is a part of evolution. Of course you're going to change. You're going to change. Listen, if you fall riding a skateboard, you're going to change in some way so that you don't fall that same way again, right? You fall off a bike, you're going to change the way you approach riding a bike so you don't fall. If you get robbed from, stolen from, if somebody uses you, manipulates you, abuses you, you're going to change so that does not happen again. Let's not make that sound like it's a bad thing. This is something that a lot of people wrestle with. They come out of a toxic relationship, and I hear it in one-on-one appointments all the time. When will I be the person that I used to be? Never. And don't desire that person, because that person had gaping holes of vulnerability that allowed people to use and abuse and manipulate. The changes that are taking place, even if it feels like it's bits of anger, even if it feels like it's bits of uncomfortableness, all of it adds up to a discernment that is building healthier boundaries around you. You want to know what healing from toxic relationships is? It's not living a life feeling, happy all the time. It's feeling safer. Why? Because you know what your boundaries are. That's healing. It's when you no longer experience narcissistic abuse. It's when nobody's stealing from you. Nobody's manipulating you anymore. That's when you know you're healed. It's not when you feel great all the time. It's when people aren't taking advantage of you. All right? So those are the three false narratives. And I hope I broke it down in a way that you can understand. Now, Mike Tyson does go on to talk about compassion, and compassion is a very admirable thing to talk about. And I understand that Mike Tyson wants to talk about it, and we do need to talk about compassion, but it's not something that you need to practice. This is another falsity. This is another false narrative that you somehow need to go out and practice compassion. You need to be compassionate because we're telling you. And oftentimes, narcissistically abusive people will weaponize this. A toxic society will weaponize compassion and say, you need to be more compassionate. You're not compassionate enough. Go be more I heard that from toxic siblings and family members. You're judgmental. You're selfish. Humble yourself down. Be more compassionate. They love saying that stuff. Why? Because it's enabling for them. Keeps you right where they want you. Watch this. I'm going to tell you the truth about compassion. Jesus was compassionate, was he not? New Testament of the Bible. This is where we get a lot of our ideas from compassion. It comes from the ancient literature of the Bible. With Jesus. Jesus was compassionate towards the sick, the hurting, the broken, the hungry. He was not compassionate towards the violent, hostile, angry, and aggressive, and those people throwing rocks at him. That's not where we saw compassion. So let's not get it twisted and perverted. As a matter of fact, Jesus also said, don't throw your pearls before the swine. Talking about people who will take advantage of your compassion, who will weaponize your compassion against you. Listen, the Bible also gives us clear indication of certain personality types and people to stay away from and have nothing to do with. I'm not going to run down the list for you. If you're interested, go read 2 Timothy in the Bible. It gives a breakdown of the violent, hostile, aggressive, arrogant. Have nothing to do with these people. Nothing. Doesn't say have compassion on them. It says have nothing to do with them. Because these people run a risk of weaponizing anything you can use out of your goodwill and tear you to pieces with it. Compassion is not something that you need to practice. Don't let people fool you into thinking that compassion is something you have to be told to do. Compassion is something that's natural. It's inside of you. It's inside of me. It's a gift that we've been given. It's a pearl that Jesus said, don't throw before the swine. Listen, what happens if somebody tells you to go out and smile more? You need to go smile more. Listen, if you go out and just practice smiling at everything, it eventually loses its meaning. It loses its authenticity. You reduce the value of your smile when you just practice doing it when you don't need to. The same is true with compassion. Compassion is a natural thing within you, just like smiling is, just like laughing. And you have to believe and trust that your compassion will come out at the right time. When you see somebody who's sick and needs help, you'll help them. When you see somebody who's hungry and dying, you'll feed them. When you give to the least of these, this, Jesus says, is when you give to me. Not when you allow somebody to hurt you, steal from you, abuse you, and then you turn and say, thank you, sir, can I have another? That is not compassion. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that. And this is what we need to understand. Listen, I want to be a part of your healing journey. And by the way, Mike Tyson, if you're watching this, I love you. Heavyweight champion of the world. If you, I'd love to be a part of your show one day. We can talk about this. But I want to be a part of your healing journey. Those of you who are watching this right now, down in the description box below this video, you'll find access to my calendar where you can schedule some one-on-one time with me. Telephone calls, FaceTime, WhatsApp video calls, it's all available for you. In addition to that, Monday night is where we live chat. Saturday morning is where we fellowship. And I'll be back with more videos for you right here on The Royal We.